Imagine sitting down to dinner with your family and suddenly all their smiles turn into cold stares, like you're a stranger who somehow stumbled into their home. "You're not one of us," they say, and it sounds like a verdict. That's when I found out that my inheritance was something dark, a secret they'd tried to bury. Think that's all? Not even close. My name's Logan, I'm 25, and yeah, I've always known I was the black sheep of the family. But believe me, I had no idea how far they'd go to show me just how cold and twisted they could be. Until that night. It was a Friday evening, and I was just minding my business, scrolling through my phone, when Mom, Mary, she's 47 and has this whole Steel Queen vibe going on, knocks on my door. No knock-knock joke energy here. She just said, "We're having a special family dinner tonight, Logan. Be there." No smile. No, "How was your day, son?" Just straight-up summons. A special dinner was out of the ordinary, but what could I do? I shrugged it off, threw on something halfway decent, and went downstairs. And there it was. The table was decked out like a magazine spread. I'm talking candles, fancy plates, the whole 9 yards. Weird, right? We weren't that kind of family. Dad, Tom, 52 and permanently uncomfortable, sat there, avoiding eye contact like his life depended on it. Across the table, my sister Sarah, 23, had this look in her eyes like she'd been waiting for this her whole life. She was staring at me, one eyebrow raised, almost amused. I sat down, and suddenly the air felt thick, heavy. There was zero small talk, just the sounds of silverware clinking and plates being passed around. The silence was unsettling, and I started to feel like I was the main course on the menu. I shifted in my seat, but something kept me glued to that chair, as if leaving wasn't even an option. Finally, Dad cleared his throat and looked at me with this strange, almost pitiful expression. "Logan," he started, voice low and careful, We found out something about you." His words hit like a punch to the gut. They didn't even feel like words. They felt like the start of something that was about to get way too real, way too fast. I froze. I mean, what could I have done that'd make them drag me to this dramatic family intervention? Did they find something? Did Sarah dig into my past just to have something against me? And there they were, looking at me, each of them with a different emotion. Anger, judgment, and yeah, even a hint of satisfaction. Imagine sitting at your own family dinner, just minding your business, and then bam, you're suddenly on trial, and the judge, jury, and executioner are your own parents. It was surreal. Mom leaned in, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "You understand, Logan? This is a scandal." She let the word hang in the air, like she was trying to build suspense or something. "We found out that you—" and she just looked at me, eyes full of disappointment. I couldn't breathe. Then she just dropped it, like a casual comment about the weather. "You are not one of us, Logan. Not one of us." Those words didn't just hurt, they shattered me. I'd always felt like the outsider, sure, but this wasn't a minor detail you could brush off. It was my entire identity crashing down. And the worst part? They'd hidden it from me, acted like we were just one big happy family, and now they were saying it was all one big mistake. My dad, who's usually the calm one, looked at me with this cold, distant stare. "Logan, you were placed with us due to an error in paperwork. We didn't ask for this. We don't even know the people you came from, but we've heard things. Let's just say they're not the kind of people we want associated with this family." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All these years of dinners, holidays, and fake family moments, they had just erased them like they never mattered. To them, I was a glitch. Some error they'd tolerated because, hey, what else could they do, right? I wanted to say something, to scream, to demand why they didn't tell me sooner, but my throat was tight. I was angry, embarrassed, lost, all at once. All I could think was, who are these people that just discarded me so easily? And why did they keep this secret hidden all this time? Being thrown out by the people I called family was brutal. But honestly, sitting around feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to get me anywhere. If they didn't want me, fine. I was going to find out where I actually came from. So, a few days later, after scouring through a bunch of dusty old documents, I stumbled across an address that made my stomach flip. My biological mother's last known address, a place somewhere out in the suburbs of Los Angeles. The whole idea of tracking her down was unsettling, but the second I saw that address, I knew I had to go. So I grabbed my keys and drove out there, feeling like I was stepping into some kind of horror movie as I got closer. This wasn't the cute little suburban home you see in feel-good movies. This place looked like it had been frozen in time, like no one had dared to touch it for years. The windows were boarded up, and the yard was overgrown with weeds that looked ready to swallow the whole house. When I pulled up, I could feel this weight pressing down on me. People say places can have a vibe, you know? Well, this one practically screamed, "Turn around now!" But instead of listening to my gut, I went looking for anyone who might know what happened here. I spotted an old man sitting on his porch across the street, watching me like he knew I didn't belong. I walked over, gave a casual nod, and tried to sound like I was just curious, not freaking out on the inside. "Hey, you know anything about the folks who used to live over there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He squinted at me like he was sizing me up, then finally said, "That was Sarah's house. Your mother's, if I remember right. She disappeared years ago, just up and vanished. Some folks say she ran off, but others, well, they think something else got her." He pointed to her house, lowering his voice like the place could hear him. "No one's touched it since. People around here say it's cursed." Hearing that sent chills down my spine. A cursed house? It sounded ridiculous, but here I was, standing in front of this abandoned relic, feeling like I'd just stumbled into a mystery way bigger than I'd bargained for. This was my so-called inheritance, a haunted house and a mother who'd disappeared into thin air. I thought I was here to find answers, but all I'd found was a twisted mess of questions. So, here I was, standing at the door of my mother's old abandoned house, trying to talk myself into going inside. The whole place looked like it had been frozen in time, covered in dust and shadows, like a snapshot from some horror movie. But I was here for answers, and I wasn't leaving until I got them. The second I stepped in, a thick, stale smell hit me, like the air hadn't moved in years. Each step I took stirred up clouds of dust that clung to the air, swirling around like I was disturbing something best left alone. I could feel this weird, almost heavy silence around me, like the house was holding its breath. I made my way through the rooms, carefully picking my way around broken furniture and random stacks of yellowed papers, until I found a narrow staircase leading up to the attic. My heart pounded as I climbed, but I kept going, curiosity pulling me up each step. The attic was a mess. Boxes, old clothes, random knickknacks, just piles and piles of stuff, like someone packed up in a hurry and left everything behind. In one corner, under a heap of dusty blankets, I spotted a leather-bound book, an old family album. I opened it, expecting photos of birthdays or holidays, maybe a glimpse of the life I could have had, but instead, the pages were filled with strange symbols and scribbled notes scattered between faded photos. The handwriting was chaotic, rushed, like whoever wrote it was desperate to capture something important. Some of the photos even had writing across the faces, almost like warnings. Then, towards the end, I flipped to a page and froze. There it was, a photo of me, a younger me, but unmistakable. Underneath was scrawled in jagged handwriting, "My duty." I felt a chill shoot down my spine. Duty. What was that supposed to mean? I started flipping back through the pages, looking at the symbols and the odd sketches. Some of them looked like they were part of some ritual or, I don't know, something meant to connect to another world. The drawings felt like they were staring back at me, like they had a life of their own. My pulse was racing, and I felt like I was spiraling deeper into some twisted family secret I was never meant to know. There was no mistaking it. This was way beyond a typical family album. It was like my mother was into something heavy, something that left a mark on this place. And now, that mark was on me too. Whatever my family had buried here, it was clear I'd just dug up something that should have stayed hidden. The next morning, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. I mean, who answers random calls these days? But something made me swipe to accept. Maybe curiosity or the fact that I couldn't shake off the weird stuff I'd found in that house. The voice on the other end was cold, almost mechanical, like the guy wasn't in the mood for small talk. "We know what you found," he said, words cutting through the silence like a knife. I blinked, caught off guard. How could anyone possibly know about that attic or the album? "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "A friend of your mother's," he replied, voice lowering. "And here's my advice. Leave the past alone. If you know what's good for you, you'll forget you ever found that house. Walk away before it's too late." There was a weight in his words, like he was genuinely worried for me, but also annoyed, maybe even desperate. My heart was racing. "Look, I don't know who you are, but I need answers," I shot back. Who was she, and why was I thrown into another family? What was the big secret? There was a pause on the other end, then a low, bitter laugh. "Some things," he said slowly, "are better left buried." Click. He hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling a mix of anger and fear crawling up my spine. There was no way I was backing down now. Not after everything I'd been through. Not after that attic. Despite the warnings, I couldn't just walk away. So I went back to that house, feeling like I was stepping straight into some sort of twisted story I couldn't escape. As I approached, I noticed someone standing in the driveway, leaning against an old car like he'd been waiting for me. This guy looked like he'd been ripped straight from one of those eerie thrillers. Sharp, unsettling eyes, a face weathered with lines that looked like they'd seen way too much, and this calm, unbothered posture that screamed, "I know things you don't." "You're Logan, right?" he said, a hint of a smile barely tugging at his lips, like he was amused I'd actually shown up. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, trying to match his calm. "You're the one who called." He nodded slowly. "I told you to stay out of it, but I guess curiosity got the best of you, just like your mother." That struck a nerve. "What does that mean? You knew her?" I demanded. "More than you think," he said, looking me over like he was sizing me up. "Your mother was part of something, let's just say, bigger than your average neighborhood club, a community that saw itself above the law, above normal morals. She was dedicated to their cause. And as her only child, you were supposed to be her legacy." Legacy? The word felt heavy, like he'd just handed me a suitcase filled with rocks. What does that even mean? He took a step closer, his face darkening. "It means that they expect you to follow her path. There's a tradition, Logan, one that's been in your family for generations. Ancient rituals, beliefs that others might find strange, dangerous even. And walking away? It's not exactly an option." I could feel my hands clenching into fists, even though every instinct screamed at me to stay calm. So what? I'm just supposed to drop my life and dive into whatever this is? He shrugged, almost nonchalantly. "Look, kid, it's not about what you want. It's about who you are. This isn't a choice for you. It's a responsibility. And if you think you can walk away, well, let's just say people who tried didn't fare too well." I swallowed, feeling the full weight of his words hit me. This wasn't just some family secret. It was a full-on legacy that they were determined to pull me into, whether I liked it or not. Everything started clicking into place, like a puzzle I hadn't realized I was part of until now. My biological mother hadn't just been anyone. She'd been wrapped up in something dark, something way bigger than I'd ever imagined. And my adoptive family, they must have pieced it together as soon as I hit 25, realizing that I was more than just Logan. They knew I was supposed to inherit her place in whatever twisted legacy she'd left behind. That night, I couldn't sleep. It was like something deep inside was pulling me, drawing me back to that cursed house. I felt it, almost like a call I couldn't ignore, a strange, bone-deep urge that felt ancient and unstoppable. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was like my own blood was telling me to go back. and there was no escaping it. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I could feel the curse's grip tightening around me. The more I thought about breaking free, the clearer it became that this wasn't going to be easy. Every part of my life started to fall apart like dominoes. My closest friends began drifting away with no explanation, just gone. My job turned into a disaster zone. Projects failed, opportunities vanished, and soon enough, I found myself completely alone in this mess. It was as if everything I'd built, every bit of my normal life, was crumbling piece by piece. This curse wasn't going to let me go without a fight. I finally got it. There was no running from this. My only way out was to face whatever was left of my mother's twisted legacy head on. So, that night, with nothing but determination and a lighter in my pocket, I headed back to that cursed house one last time. The place looked even darker than before, like it knew what I was planning to do, but I didn't hesitate. I went straight to the attic and found that old album still lying there, waiting like it had been holding onto its secrets for me all these years. I took a deep breath, then opened it, feeling every weird symbol, every disturbing image hit me like a final goodbye to everything that had messed with my life. One by one, I tore out the pages, every photo, every drawing. And as the pages burned, the room filled with this thick, smoky air, like the house itself was trying to hold on, refusing to let go of its hold on me. Then came the sounds, whispers that seemed to seep from the walls, growing louder, like voices from the past were calling my name, taunting me. But I didn't stop. I closed my eyes, shouting at them, cursing everything that had kept me trapped, every ounce of blood and bond I'd ever had with them. When the fire died down, the album reduced to ashes, I felt this overwhelming sense of calm. It was like something heavy, something that had been clinging to me my whole life, had finally let go. Standing there at dawn, surrounded by ashes and smoke, I knew that whatever curse they'd tried to put on me was gone. I might have been left with nothing and no one, but I was free.